Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Podcast. Today my guest is Jackie Jones Hunt. Jackie is a UK-based author, psychical researcher, mediumship, lecturer, psychic, and long-term vegetarian. Jackie's 3 books to date include Moses and Jesus the Shamans, and book 1 and 2 in her Animals Have Souls series, Proof Animals Have Souls, and 500 plus celebrities go vegetarian. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's nice to speak to you.
Thank you for coming on. I'm excited to talk to you about animals and pets and spirits. Let's start with, how about you introduce yourself to the audience and a little bit about your background and your books.
I'm a psychical researcher. I'm psychic as well. So I call myself a psychical researcher of over 40 years. I'm an author of 3 books, which are on out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, mediumship, shamanism. And I have taught courses on these subjects. And I also read the angel dice and tarot cards, which are predictive and intuitive spiritual guidance to help people emotionally heal and to help them deal with events in their lives. And as you mentioned, I'm a long-term vegetarian for compassionate reasons. And that was about 40 years ago when I went vegetarian because I didn't want any hand in animal suffering. And in latter years, I've realized how I believe in karma, but I've realized how much better it is for the health.
Yeah, for sure. So your expertise comes from research and personal experience as far as
Yes,
animals from a
yes,
soul perspective. Yeah.
yes. I've had many mediumistic and psychic experiences since I was a child. And I have observed mediumship as well. And I've been to the Arthur Findlay College, almost lived there for many years, which is down in Essex, Stansted, Essex in England. And President Gordon Higginson, who was the long-term president of the Arthur Findlay College, was a wonderful medium ahead of his time. He was also a trance medium and produced physical phenomena. And he was very much a spiritual father and great friend to me. And I used to go on residential courses for many weeks every year for many years, and learned a great deal from him, observed a great deal, but have had a lot of experiences myself, which were not to do with other mediums, but to do with my own mediumistic experiences and my own psychic experiences, which I'm happy to discuss later in this interview.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of those experiences, starting with maybe the earlier ones. What happened initially to make you realize something else is going on here? I mean, even as a child, right?
Okay, one of my earliest as a child, I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. I had thought I had seen spirit on the landing outside my bedroom, but one particular experience was a sleep state experience, and that's how a lot of the ancient Egyptian mediums worked, in sleep state experiences, and it seems to be the way I work. And I dreamt that I was the only person at my father's funeral, and I was stood there and my father had passed. And I did wake up in tears, and I felt it was symbolic soon after when I overheard my parents talking that they were going to have a divorce. So I told my older sister, I believe my parents are going to have a divorce. It was me passing on the information to her. And I took it, oh, well, it's just a symbolic thing that my dad's dying to us. He's not going to be here as much. However, 40 years later, after my father having created his own life elsewhere and seeing us from time to time and then losing contact with us for decades, because his partner didn't want him to have contact with us because she had her own children. These things happen. I found I experienced the fact that my dad was passing away. So I drove all the way from Devon to the northwest of England and found him in a passing away room in a Southport hospital. And I prayed that I wouldn't cry, but when I saw him as an emaciated old man, they said he'd collapsed. And I asked, could I take him back to Devon with me? And she said, I think that's the best thing because he's been overdosed by his partner, they thought, which is what they said, on warfarin, which is rat poison, which overthins the blood if you have too much. And that's why he was in a duffel coat on a sunny day, a very warm day, and he'd collapsed. So anyway, I took my dad back to Devon with me, and then we moved back to Scotland, where I've spent decades, and we brought my dad with us. And when my dad did pass away, my husband was called away being a medical doctor. And as most of his friends had passed away and we'd all moved back to Scotland, whatever friends he had left would have all been in England. And it turned out that I was the only one at his funeral. So it was a prediction that did actually occur.
Oh my gosh.
So that was when I was 9. And that was one of the earliest experiences, probably about 7 or 8, because I think I was about 8 years old when they divorced. So that was one
Okay.
of the earliest experiences. But I have others that include animals, if you're interested.
Absolutely. I was going to ask that next. How did
Okay.
the interest in animals and seeing animal spirits come about?
Okay. Again, in a sleep state experience, it's like you're not asleep, but not awake, but you're there. And I was stepping onto a steam train at dusk, just as the sun had gone down, and I was waving goodbye to my husband and just calmly stepping onto the train. And as I did, this calm male voice said to me, as long as you understand, it's the one-way journey we all have to make. And as soon as he said that, I quickly took my foot off the train and turned to my husband and woke up completely and was in tears and said to my husband, I've just had the choice to live or die. And my husband said, no, we hadn't been married very long. And he didn't know me very well because we'd married so quickly. We've been married now over 31 years, but we met and married within weeks. But anyway, I said, the IVF operation or procedure I'm going to have in the next day or two, I know it's going to go wrong. Well, my husband is a consultant cardiologist and general medicine. And he said, Jackie, it's a sausage factory. You have the procedure, a cup of tea and a sandwich, and then you go home. He said, I don't even need to be there. I said, oh, you do. And so obviously he did come with me. And the night before that procedure, I felt like I was going to the guillotine.
Mhm.
I could empathize with anyone who was having that. And in my little overnight box, your little toiletries box, I had my toothbrush and my nightdress because I knew I was not going to be coming home in the next hour or two after the procedure. So when we went, I said to them, could you please give me an anesthetic so I can keep my emotions and my fear out of this? I didn't tell them why. And so they said, yes, that's not a problem. So they anesthetized me and they took the eggs out, which are to be fertilized
Right.
and put back sometime later. Anyway, they took the eggs out. And when the lady tapped me on the cheek to wake me up, I was in excruciating agony and I bent double. I was laying on the stretcher, the type of one that get wheeled back to the ward, and I bent double. So she rushed to the anaesthetist and said she needs more painkillers. So he gave me an injection of more painkillers and they rolled me back to the ward where my husband and other husbands were waiting with their wives. They were having sandwiches and cups of tea. I glanced and I was still in pain. And I said to my husband, could you please check on Sue, our dog, in the car? Because it was a sunny day, not too hot at all, but the windows were open because I thought we're not going to be going home quickly. And he got back from the car minutes later and my eyes rolled back and I'd gone. And my husband told them while I had died, she's hemorrhaging badly, quickly. And he went into like full doctor mode, telling the nurses there with the sandwiches and cups of tea, she needs a drip, she needs this, she needs that, get her head down. I think the human body has got 5 liters of blood. I lost 3 liters of blood. My husband had my head down to try and avoid brain damage. And the nurses were all saying, oh, she must be allergic to the anesthetic. And he said, no, she's hemorrhaging. He said, it's vasovagal. I always remember him saying that as I started to come back. But I had literally gone. And if he hadn't have been there, I would definitely have gone because they just thought, oh, she's having an allergic reaction and what's happened to her. And they hadn't given it much consideration. Days later in the hospital, because they wheeled me from that private side, which was IVF, to the hospital side, in the middle of the night, my husband was laying on a camp bed in my room with our little dog Sue under a blanket, and you could just see her tail hanging out, and couldn't leave her in the car overnight, so she was in the hospital too. And in the middle of the night, I couldn't breathe. They had pillows around me like bubble wrap, like cotton wool. My stomach had come up from my neck down to my pelvic region, as though I was 9 months pregnant. And they'd managed to get an inch tape round, which was coming up and up and up, and they were monitoring the loss of blood, which was a gusher in the gynecological area, lower in the pelvis. And I woke in the night. There was just my husband and the dog on the camp bed, and I couldn't breathe. But then I was aware of a voice around my right ear. No body, just the voice, male voice, very clear, very calm, saying, there's fluid going on your lung. If you try to sit up, it will clear. So I tried to pull myself up as he had guided me to. And as I did, I passed out yet again with the pain, which was countless times I passed out. I lost count. To any movement, I'd pass out. It was excruciating. And a day or two later, the same thing happened, but he didn't appear, or no voice. And I knew what to do, try and sit up and it will clear. And I passed out with the pain, but it cleared the fluid on the lung. And then after that, the doctors realized there was blood clots from the hemorrhaged blood going onto my lungs. And that's, another life-threatening situation.
Right.
I had septicemia as well, because all the blood was in the wrong place. And my kidneys were going into like a failure. And he realized how the body is like one step at a time. It's like a stack of cards. Yeah. You knock one over and one next to the other.
Dominoes.
Made me think of people who've had abortions and how they've died in the past with things going wrong, backstreet abortions. But this was the opposite. It was IVF. And where did I get to? Oh, in the middle of the night again, I think it was sort of late evening. I think my husband was asleep. And I looked down at my right calf, and there was Jack, my female Jack Russell. Me being Jackie, I'd christened her Jack when I had rescued her from the rescue centre. JAC, my little Jack Russell, who'd passed a month before. And there she was, laying across my right calf. I could see her. Not only that, I could feel her fur, her weight, and the warmth of her body. And it was across the right calf. And I must have gone off to sleep again. And the next day, the doctor said, oh, she's developing in her right calf, she's developing a deep vein thrombosis. That's because I was laying down, had to be because of the situation I was in. And I realized that little Jack had come back to give me healing. And that's why she was laying across the right calf, and she was forewarning me. And my husband said to me, move your foot up and down all through the day and night as best you can. Just keep moving your foot up and down. Obviously, they gave me medication as well. Otherwise, I could have been in further trouble. So that was a very, very clear experience of my dog, and also of a male spirit, probably my male spirit guardian for health. And a month or two later, when I was at least not in a wheelchair because I was in such a bad state, I went to a spiritualist church in Devon where I'd lived at the time, and it was in Paynton near Torquay. And the medium came to me. She was on the platform, and it was a full church, spiritualist church. And the medium came to me and said, they're telling me to tell you to go out in peace and not in pieces. She said, you've been through a terrible ordeal. And she said, they simply want you to know that you have been having many experiences of spirit, and they want you to know none of them were hallucinations. And I said, yes, I'm aware of that. I am aware of that, but it's good to have further confirmation, even though I know it was not hallucinations. So there was another time I was in a sleep state and I couldn't breathe. We'd finally got home, and I was driving in my old Volvo car with its cobwebs around its mirrors, and it's an old banger. And I opened the window to get air in, couldn't get air in. So then I opened the car door and couldn't get air in. And I knew I was going to visit Sally, a medium in Torquay. How I was going there, I don't know, but that's what I was doing. And then I must have sat up a bit and the blood clots went. And days later, I did phone Sally and I said, I was driving to you the other night before my husband rushed me into the hospital because of blood clots going on the lung. And she said, what night? And I told her. She said, oh, that was our healing meditation circle night. And she said, we must have been sending some sort of light out and you were on your way to us for help. So that was another interesting experience. And some of them have been quite dramatic.
Yeah. So when Jack was on your leg, did he just look like a regular dog, or was it kind of a shimmery?
Totally. No different to a physical in the body dog. And that was little Jack, back, aware that I was in trouble, and she was giving me healing.
And
I could
comfort.
Feel, the warmth of her body, her fur, and even her weight. I could feel it all.
Interesting. Do you communicate with animals that are living?
Well, I have 5 dogs, all rescued in different ways. They've all got individual personalities. And I do intuitively seem to know what they're feeling. If somebody's upset because somebody's taken their chewing stick, I'll see it at the other end of the room and I'll think, that's what you're trying to tell me. Because it's like a little social life. It's like a kindergarten in our house of the 5 little Jack Russells walking about and the experiences they have. And although sometimes they don't get along, I think they would miss each other terribly. But if I'm thinking to go upstairs, then they might walk to the stairs before me, or if I'm thinking to go out, then somebody's at the door to make sure they come with me. So I do believe they're telepathic with me and I'm telepathic with them. And you can feel their emotions. And importantly, we are animals, we are primates, we are mammals. We're 2-legged animals, primates and mammals, and they are 4-legged animals, primates and mammals. Yeah. But we like to come out with this separate word, human. So what does that mean? And we all have, including birds and 4-legged animals, REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, which means we all dream and we all have nightmares. And I often see their little legs going and their shadowy little bark. And I think, they're dreaming about playing in the garden today, or they're dreaming about their walk today. Once little Jack, before I had the 5, when I only had the 1, we'd seen, I'm not sure what pet it was, wrapped around a man's neck in the park. And that night, in the middle of the night, she woke me up and I thought, she needs the toilet. So we went out and she raced to the park and I thought, where are we going? And then when the park gate was locked and shut, she realized we couldn't go in. And I realized she was simply she'd been dreaming about that animal around the man's neck and she wanted me to take her to the park so she could see it again. I can't remember if it was an otter or what the creature was, but it was a funny little animal he had wrapped around his neck.
An actual animal, or not?
Yes.
Like a necklace?
Oh no, it was a pet, a living live pet. And he had it round his neck like a scarf and it was going for a walk with him on its sleeve, but round his neck in the park. And it was so unusual. But Jack had woken in the night, obviously dreaming about it.
Yeah.
But I often think about the nightmares animals must have in these laboratories. And then you think of also people being abductees with aliens. And you think, well, I can imagine the terror and the fear and the suffering if anyone's doing experiments on us. And their bodies are so different. 2 hours. And they've got the same nerve endings as us, the same emotions.
Yeah.
They suffer sadness and depression. So that's one of the reasons I became vegetarian, because I started to realize they dream, they have emotions, they have feelings. Jack even had a phantom pregnancy because she wanted to have pups and she didn't have any pups.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That can
so
happen.
much goes on in their minds.
Yeah. The only thing they don't have is a thumb, I guess. But other than
Yeah,
that, it's basically
yes,
the same thing.
yes.
So, do you communicate with animals after they've passed?
Yes, I have had experiences when little Sue, our 16-year-old, after Jack passed, I took on another one because I believe it's our duty to. If you can give a loving, happy, healthy, peaceful home to a pet, then I believe it's our duty to. And the love for one isn't superseded by the love for another. There's plenty of room in our heart for them all. So when Jack passed, after about a month, I went to a rescue centre and took on Sue, Sioux, another little Jack Russell. Um, and after 16 years, when little Sue passed, I saw a pink haze near her bed, on the mat, near the fireside. And I knew it was Sue. She hadn't left us. She was still there. And when I was actually painting the garden office on a gorgeous sunny day in the garden, painting it nice green waterproof type paint, every time I went in the kitchen for a drink of water or a break, I could see her in the kitchen floor. And I thought it really put me in a very meditative mind state, just painting. It is a type of meditation.
Sure.
And over, there she was in the corner of the room sitting.
How long had she passed?
She had, some years at that point.
Okay,
And there was
interesting.
another sleep state experience regarding Jack. Um, I was with her and it was all so beautiful, but I woke up and it was like the other type of mind comes in. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, how could I give Jack to somebody else? How could I have lost Jack? How could I have got rid of her? How could she have gone? There's no way I could do that. And I think what it was, looking back, it's because I'd been with her in my sleep state. And then she'd gone off with the people who were looking after her there. And I'd woken up then without her. And I was completely mixed up and disconcerted as how am I not with Jack?
Mm.
So I now know what it was. I was just all mixed up. Like
Yeah.
one minute I'm with her and the next minute I'm not. And I had this horrible, your conscious mind kicks in as I've given Jack away. How could I do that? And I hadn't given her away. It's they'd taken her to look after her in the spirit world. So there was an
Oh,
experience.
interesting. So, do you think that the animals reincarnate? Pets reincarnate?
Well, I believe so, because I believe we're all animals.
Yeah.
We all have the same nerve endings and we all have the rapid eye movement, REM sleeps. So yes, I believe we do, because I believe every incarnation is an opportunity for spiritual evolution, spiritual growth. And I believe, a human can come back as an animal and an animal can come back as a human, as Plato and the other Greek um, geniuses of the past taught. And I don't see why not. I think I'm an old soul, hopefully a youthful spirit. And
Right.
sometimes I feel like I've been here too many times and I don't like the changes in the world and I don't really want to come back anymore.
That's common among people who've had near-death experiences, I think,
Is it?
yeah, when they pass, from what I've read and seen,
Mm.
if they get a choice, to come back or not,
Oh, they don't want to come back.
most of them
Yeah,
don't want to come.
I know. Well, yeah, I see what you mean. Well, I feel the same. I don't really want to come back I think what we've made a mess of this world, and I think there's a mess coming.
Um, do you have any advice for folks who have lost a pet recently and are grieving?
Yes, on my website, which is JackieJonesHunt.com. Jackie is spelled Jack I-A, JonesHunt.com. There are 35 interviews with mediums, and in every one it's radio show. Every one I have asked the mediums, do you see, hear, see clairvoyantly, hear clairaudiently, sense clairsentiently, or claircognizance, knowing? do you have any experiences of seeing animals? And in everyone, they've said yes, including Gordon Higginson of the past, who, as I said, was the president, long-term serving president of the Arthur Findlay College, brilliant medium, trance medium, physical phenomena medium. And I remember once he said he saw all these rabbits around this man. And he said, well, I used to shoot rabbits. And he said, well, you know, there is such a thing as karma, and these rabbits are all around you. And it's the rabbits, obviously, he'd shot, and the suffering he'd brought to them. But
Wow.
I can only say, go on my website and you'll listen to 35 different mediums, all saying yes, see, sense, hear, experience animals. And my book, Proof Animals Have Souls, has got lots of my experiences in it, as well as others. And that also talks about the vegetarianism of Jesus, which was changed by Paul to make the religion suit the masses in Rome, who were great big meat eaters, and how the disciples really didn't like Paul, and they called him the enemy. And it brings in lots of ancient documents and exposes also biblical mistranslations that condemn mediumship. And it teaches people how to become mediums and what's the difference between mediumship and psychic. It's all in my books, Moses and Jesus, the Shamans, and Proof Animals Have Souls. And the
Awesome.
500 plus celebrities go vegetarian. But if
Mm-hmm.
they look at Amazon and my website, if you go on the website, you can just click the links and it takes you straight to the Amazon sites. And that's JackieJonesHunt.com. And my email is JackieJonesHunt@gmail.com if anybody was interested in having a reading online. But I do them in person as well.
Oh, okay. So you offer individual readings for folks who want
Yes,
to get in touch with animals or people on the other side?
yes.
Oh,
And predictive readings. I've got an album about that fat of, I always ask people to record the reading because there's so much information they would forget. The angel dice, we cast them 3 times and there's 7 each time. So that's 21 pieces of information. And then the cards that we put out, and angel cards and fairy cards as well, and tarot cards. By the time we've finished in about an hour, there's a great deal of information. And I always ask people to give me feedback. So as I say, I've got an album that fat full of people's written feedback, saying it's accurate, how the reading has helped emotionally heal them or help them and strengthen them, and the spiritual guidance and advice.
awesome. I'm curious about one thing when you said about seeing the animals after they've passed. If the animal has reincarnated already, do you think, would you still be able to see the spirit? Because, you know, uh, there's no time, so time is not linear on the other side. So maybe the
No,
two
they're out of
things,
space and out of time.
yeah.
Um, but it's that love link that connects people. My battery is running low, it's saying, and I don't understand why, because it's
Oh,
plugged.
okay.
I don't understand why it's saying that.
Well, we can wrap up.
Okay, I don't know why it's suddenly saying that because it
No
is plugged
worries.
in. So it's
All
just to
right.
let you know.
Okay, no
But
problem.
yes, I do believe we reincarnate, and um, I think people get the choice whether they reincarnate here or whether they just continue to be a guide to loved ones here. And I believe that probably from my past lives, I've drawn to me friends and family who are possibly my guides now. And if people ask for healing, guidance, and protection, etc., as I have done, I think I've brought to me somebody who looks after my health. And I think that was the person who had spoken to me when I needed it,
Hmm.
when I'd hemorrhaged.
Yeah, I guess the most important thing for people who've lost a pet is, they want to know, is my pet okay? Is my
Well, I can tell them, listen to the 35 interviews that
they
you've
are
got
okay.
Yeah, and you see some people who say, oh, they're not, or they're a group soul, or whatever. It depends who they're communicating with. Are they communicating with a very high guide, a highly elevated guide, or a low level guide? And if it's a low level guide, they may not be getting the best information. So my belief is, as Jesus said, there's many mansions in my Father's house. There's many landscapes on different levels. As people evolve, they move up a level. And like attracts like, and that love link will always keep people together. And if it's like 9 years when your pet passed, it might feel like 9 minutes when you see them again. It's like a really good friend or family member. If you haven't seen them for years and you suddenly see them, you give them a hug and you're back together again.
Right.
Time doesn't exist.
So we will see them again after we pass.
Oh, I am sure of it.
That's
It's that
awesome.
love link.
Yeah.
And I do believe karma is there for everything we do and say. And it
Even if they've
determines.
reincarnated,
Well, I
that's
don't
kind of,
necessarily think they reincarnate that quickly.
oh, okay. Okay. That's what I was wondering.
Mm.
Um, that if they reincarnated, then maybe when we pass, we might not see them on the other side. But I think it could, my opinion
I think
is
you'd still
you
experience
could,
them.
you would still because the both things
Mm.
can happen simultaneously, right?
Yes. Yeah. And your spirit guides on the other side, if it did happen, would probably say, look, see this daughter here? That's your pet who's reincarnated, and you would possibly have connection in the sleep state. So there's always a
Right.
way, and no one's left alone, and everyone's taken and guided and looked after in the next level of existence. And very much like attracts like as a perfect form of justice. It's not an angry God, but I do believe there's a perfect form of justice, like attracts like. And so you've got your lower level people on a lower level of landscape, and
Sure.
you've got your higher level people of a higher level of landscape. And I don't believe suicide people are lost at all. I think everybody is met and looked after. And as they emotionally and mentally, physically, or spiritually heal, they move up on landscapes.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
think we might need to close. I don't understand
Awesome.
what it's
No
saying.
worries.
It's
No
running
worries.
low. But we have
Thank
had
you
a good
so
old
much
chat,
for being
and it's been
here.
a pleasure speaking with
Been a
you.
pleasure. Thank you for the conversation, and we'll talk
Thank
again
you.
soon. Okay.
Thank you.